The phone rang at exactly 3:04 a.m. sharp. Loud. Unforgiving. Tasha Johnson nearly dropped her vacuum when the sound sliced through the silence of the 47th floor. She was 3 hours into her overnight cleaning shift at Zentratech Tower in downtown Chicago, her earbuds playing soft jazz to keep her awake, her mind somewhere between exhaustion and autopilot. But that ring, it wasn't just a ringtone. It felt wrong. She glanced at the screen. An international number. Unknown. Her first instinct? Ignore it. Who the hell calls a janitor at 3 a.m. from overseas? But something about it made her pause. She wiped her gloves on her uniform and answered with a hesitant, "Hello?" What came next was not a wrong number. It was a cry for help. "Please, you must help me. Mr. Stone, he won't answer. And if he doesn't act now, this deal, it will collapse." The woman's voice was thick with a Japanese accent, trembling with panic. Tasha blinked, unsure if she was dreaming. "Wait, Mr. Stone? As in Elliot Stone? The CEO?" "Yes," the woman cried. 3 hours left. If he doesn't respond, the Tokyo team will walk away. Over $200 million gone. Now, Tasha wasn't anyone important. At least, that's what the world told her. She was a night shift cleaner. Black. 30. No college degree. Working 3 jobs just to keep her little apartment in Bronzeville. But tonight? Tonight, none of that mattered. Because she was the only person in the building with a phone that still worked, and the only person who could possibly reach the billionaire asleep 5 floors above her. This was no prank call. This was a moment that could change everything. So, she did what most people wouldn't. She put down her vacuum, tightened her ponytail, and headed for the executive suite. Because when the world's falling apart, sometimes the hero isn't the one in a suit. Sometimes, it's the one who sweeps the floors. The elevator ride to the 50th floor felt like it took hours. Each ding was a drumbeat in Tasha's chest. She'd never been this high up in the building before. The executive level was off limits. Cleaners were told to stick to floors 10 through 48. Period. But tonight wasn't normal. Tonight, a woman half a world away had begged her to find a man who held the future of a $200 million deal in his hands. As the elevator doors slid open, Tasha stepped into silence. The air felt different up here. Colder, more sterile. Even the carpet looked richer, thicker, like it belonged in a 5-star hotel. She walked past glass walls and gold nameplates, her sneakers nearly silent on the plush flooring. Then she saw it. A faint light under the door at the end of the hallway. E. Stone. Chief Executive Officer. She hesitated. What if he yelled at her? What if security dragged her out? What if this was all just a mistake? But then she remembered the voice on the phone. Desperate. Broken. 3 hours left. Tasha knocked. Soft at first. Then louder. Nothing. She tried again. Mr. Stone? Hello. Are you okay in there? A beat of silence. Then came a muffled groan. The kind you hear when someone wakes up confused and hungover. A few seconds later, the door cracked open. And there he was. Elliot Stone. Billionaire tech genius. Forbes cover boy. The man with a net worth so high, it made your eyes hurt. But he didn't look powerful tonight. His dress shirt was half untucked. His hair a mess. His eyes bloodshot. And the smell, coffee, sweat, and something sharp like stress, hung in the air around him. Who are you? He asked, voice raspy. My name's Tasha. I work the night shift. Someone from Tokyo tried to reach you. They couldn't get through. She said if you don't respond in time, the Yamato Tech deal is done. Elliot blinked, like her words were trying to force their way through his exhaustion. The Tokyo deal, he said, almost to himself. My phone died. I must have. I fell asleep at my desk. Tasha nodded. Yeah, you did. But right now, you need to wake up. Because the clock was ticking. And the cleaner who didn't belong on the 50th floor just became the only person who could help him save it all. Elliot stumbled back into his office like a man returning from battle. Papers were everywhere. 3 computer monitors blinked with spreadsheets, emails, half-written memos. A half-eaten protein bar sat beside a row of empty coffee cups. The man looked like he hadn't slept in 2 days. Tasha lingered at the doorway, unsure if she was supposed to follow. This wasn't her world. But Elliot waved her in. "Close the door," he said. "Please." She stepped inside cautiously. The room was colder than she expected. No warmth. No family photos. Just chrome, glass, and stress. Elliot sat heavily in his chair and buried his face in his hands. "I thought we had another week before the Tokyo team needed final revisions. I didn't know they moved the timeline up." "They didn't," Tasha said softly. "They said your contract translation offended them." Elliot looked up, confused. "Offended?" "Yeah. The woman, Akiko, I think. She said it came across as disrespectful. Like your company was doing them a favor, instead of offering a partnership." Elliot's eyes widened. His jaw clenched. "Oh no. Oh no no no." He scrambled for his desk drawer and pulled out a charger, plugging in a dead phone. "We used a legal translator," he muttered. "Strict. Literal. But they're not trained in Japanese business etiquette. Damn it. I should have had Akiko look over it before we sent it out." Tasha didn't fully understand the details, but she understood the feeling. The gut-sinking dread when you realize something small just broke something huge. "What happens if they walk away?" she asked. He didn't look up. "Yamato Tech is our gateway into Asia. If they walk, we lose access to 3 other partner firms. That's hundreds of millions in future deals. Gone." Silence stretched between them. Only the low hum of his desktop fan filled the air. Then he looked at her. Really looked. Like he'd finally registered who she was. "You said your name's Tasha?" She nodded. "You're just cleaning here?" "Tonight. I've been cleaning here for the last 6 months. Nights only." He let out a breath, like a man who didn't know whether to laugh or panic. "Funny. I've got a team of Ivy League consultants and 6-figure strategists. But the only person who picked up the call that might save my company was you." Tasha shrugged. Sometimes the most important calls don't go to the people wearing suits. Elliot stared at his phone as it finally powered on. And for the first time that night, Tasha saw something shift in his eyes. Determination. Because what started as a mistake had just become a second chance. Elliot paced the room like a man trying to outrun his own thoughts. "Okay," he muttered. "We need to call them back. We need to fix this now. But how do I explain that the language wasn't meant to be disrespectful when the damage is already done?" Tasha sat quietly in one of the sleek, high-backed guest chairs, her hands folded in her lap. She watched him with curious eyes, not judging, just observing. This was a man used to control, a man who built empires out of certainty. And right now, he looked like a scared kid in a grown man's suit. "Maybe," she said, "you don't explain anything." He stopped pacing. "What? I mean, maybe you don't explain. Maybe you listen." Elliot blinked. "You think listening's gonna save a multi-million-dollar deal?" She leaned forward a little. "When people feel disrespected, it's not always because of the words you used. Sometimes, it's because they didn't feel seen. They didn't feel like what they cared about mattered to you." He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. "You ever had someone talk at you instead of to you?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "Well, imagine you spend your whole life building a company with your father's name on the front door. And then some foreign company sends you a contract that sounds like they're doing you a favor. That's not just bad translation. That's personal." Elliot sat back down at his desk, stunned silent. "You're right," he said after a moment. "You're completely right." Tasha gave a half-smile. "I don't know much about mergers or business strategy, but I know what it's like to have someone act like your worth is based on your title." Her voice softened. "I've had people walk past me all week like I'm invisible. Until tonight." That last line hit Elliot hard. He stared at the phone in his hand. "We're gonna call them," he said firmly. "And I'm not leading with numbers or terms. I'm leading with an apology." He looked up. "But I want you to stay." "Me? You saw what I didn't. You understood what I forgot. That makes you the most qualified person in this room right now." Tasha blinked, stunned. And for the first time in her life, someone in a corner office wasn't just seeing her mop. They were seeing her. Elliot stared at the screen of his freshly charged phone. His thumb hovered over the contact Akiko had used earlier. Tokyo was 14 hours ahead. It was nearing 6 p.m. there, just enough time to stop the wheels from spinning off the rails. He looked at Tasha. "You ready?" he asked. She gave a half-smile. "I'm just a janitor, remember?" He shook his head. "No. You're the reason we're making this call." He tapped the number. The line rang once, then twice. A soft click, and a voice answered, rushed and breathless. "Hello? Hello. This is Akiko." "Akiko, it's Elliot Stone," he said. I'm so sorry I didn't respond earlier. My phone died. I fell asleep working on the contract." There was a pause, then a sigh of what sounded like deep, tired relief. "Mr. Stone. Thank God. I thought—" She cut herself off. "Mr. Nakamura is very upset. He says your tone felt arrogant, like your company does not value partnership." "I understand," Elliot said softly. "I take full responsibility. But please, let me speak to him. I'd like to make this right." A few beats later, another voice came on the line. Deeper, slower, formal. "This is Kenji Nakamura," the man said. Elliot sat up straighter. "Mr. Nakamura, thank you for taking this call. I won't waste your time. I just want to say I deeply regret the way our contract came across. It wasn't meant to be disrespectful." There was silence on the other end. "I know that's easy to say," Elliot continued, "but I want to tell you why this deal matters to me personally. Not just as a CEO, but as a son." He glanced at Tasha, who nodded. "My father built Zentrotech from a one-room office in Michigan. He believed partnerships should be earned, not assumed. I lost sight of that when I rushed this contract. I let legal terms replace human values. That was my mistake." Mr. Nakamura was quiet. Then, "You speak of your father. My company also carries my father's name." Tasha leaned forward. "Then maybe this isn't just a deal," she said gently. "Maybe it's two legacies trying to understand each other." There was another pause. Then, Mr. Nakamura's voice came through, softer this time. "Who is this speaking?" "Tasha Johnson. I work nights at Zentrotech. But tonight, I saw something worth saving." Mr. Nakamura exhaled, long and slow. "This conversation," he said, "is the first time I have felt heard." And just like that, the deal wasn't dead. It had begun again, on new ground. The call ended with a quiet tone, but the silence that followed felt electric. Elliot sat back in his chair, still processing what had just happened. Tasha leaned forward, elbows on her knees, eyes wide. "Did that really just work?" she asked. Elliot nodded slowly, almost in disbelief. "I think it did." Then his phone lit up again, a message from Akiko. "Mr. Nakamura would like to extend an invitation for you to visit Tokyo. He believes that if this partnership is to work, it should begin face-to-face, with real conversation, not contracts. He also requests that Ms. Johnson attend." Elliot read the message out loud, then looked over at Tasha. She blinked. "Me?" He smiled. "Apparently, you made quite an impression." Tasha sat back in the chair like the wind had been knocked out of her. "I've never even been on a plane longer than 4 hours." "You got a passport?" he asked, half teasing. She hesitated. "Yeah, I got one a couple years ago. Thought maybe someday I'd take a real vacation. Never had the money." Elliot's smile softened. "Well, pack it. We leave in 2 days." She stared at him, stunned. "Wait, are you serious? Like actually serious?" "As serious as a company-saving trip to Japan," he said. "Tasha, he doesn't want a legal team. He wants a conversation. And you started that." Tasha shook her head slowly. "I'm a night shift cleaner, Elliot." He leaned forward, eyes locked with hers. "Not anymore." She didn't respond right away. Her chest rose and fell with a slow, steady breath. And then she laughed, half nervous, half overwhelmed. Guess I better get some luggage. He stood and held out a hand. She looked at it, then took it. This isn't just a business trip, he said. It's a chance to show the world what partnership really looks like. Tasha nodded. And maybe it's a chance to show them who I really am. They stood there for a moment. Two people from opposite worlds, now on the same path, headed for Tokyo. Together. The moment the plane touched down at Haneda Airport, Tasha felt like she'd landed on another planet. Tokyo was alive, fast-paced, clean in a way that didn't feel real. Neon signs flickered like synchronized dancers. Taxis glided silently down pristine streets. People moved with quiet urgency, heads slightly bowed, eyes respectful but distant. Tasha had done her research. She'd read the etiquette blogs, watched YouTube videos on Japanese business culture, even practiced bowing in the mirror at the hotel. Still, stepping into this new world felt like walking onto a stage where everyone else knew the choreography but her. Their driver bowed before opening the car door. Inside, everything was spotless. Even the leather seats smelled like order. "Wow," Tasha whispered, glancing at Elliot beside her. He offered a small smile. "Yeah, it's a lot." A woman greeted them at the hotel, a tall, graceful figure in a slate-gray blazer. She introduced herself as Lynn, their Tokyo liaison. Fluent in both English and Japanese, Lynn exuded calm. She didn't just speak. She composed sentences like music. "Mr. Stone, Ms. Johnson," she said with a soft bow. "Welcome. Mr. Nakamura looks forward to meeting you tomorrow. But tonight, I'll help you prepare." Tasha nodded, trying not to look as nervous as she felt. In the hotel suite, Lynn laid out printed folders, a small tray of matcha tea, and a thick envelope labeled Yamato Tech Partnership Expectations. Elliot dove into the paperwork. Tasha. She stood by the window, watching the city from the 19th floor. Lights pulsed below like a living circuit board. Lynn joined her. "First time in Japan?" "Yeah," Tasha said. "First time this far from home. First time being anything more than invisible." Lynn's gaze was kind. In Japan, the greatest power is not always loud. It is often the one who listens before they speak. Tasha met her eyes. Then maybe I'm in the right place after all. That night, she didn't sleep much. Too many thoughts. Too many doubts. But somewhere deep inside, beyond the nerves and jet lag, was something steady. She was here for a reason. And tomorrow, she'd prove it wasn't a mistake. The Yamato Tech boardroom was silent. Not tense, not hostile, just still. 8 executives sat around a long polished table, each with an identical leather portfolio and an expression of serene reserve. Mr. Nakamura sat at the head, his posture upright, his hands folded carefully on the table. To his right, Lynn stood quietly as interpreter. Elliot started the presentation. His voice was confident, practiced, American. He walked them through projected market growth, shared cost breakdowns, and a revised version of the partnership proposal. The PowerPoint clicked along behind him, slide after slide of stats and timelines. And yet, the room didn't move. No questions. No nods. No reaction. Tasha sat beside him, feeling the air grow heavier by the second. She could tell. This wasn't working. Halfway through the pitch, the projector froze. The screen flickered, then went black. Elliot pressed a button. Nothing. Lynn stepped forward to troubleshoot, but Mr. Nakamura raised his hand. "No need," he said quietly. "Perhaps this is a good place to pause." Everyone looked toward him. He turned to Elliot. "We appreciate the data, but I'm afraid it does not address our concerns." Elliot straightened. "If there's something unclear, we're happy to revise the—" Mr. Nakamura shook his head. "This isn't about clarity. It's about culture." Silence again. Then, unexpectedly, Tasha stood. Her voice was calm but strong. "May I say something?" All eyes turned. Tasha took a deep breath. "I know I'm not supposed to be the one talking here. I don't have a title. I'm not a VP or a strategist. But I do know people." She looked around the table. "Back in Chicago, there's a kid in my neighborhood who almost dropped out of school. Not because he's lazy, but because the after-school program that helped him stay focused lost funding. The sponsor pulled out. Said the partnership didn't deliver ROI. She paused. But that program, it saved that kid's life. Not with spreadsheets. With presence. With respect. The room stayed quiet, but no longer cold. She met Mr. Nakamura's gaze. Maybe what we need here isn't a new contract. Maybe we need a new conversation. Mr. Nakamura's lips parted slightly. It wasn't quite a smile, but it wasn't a no. Lin spoke softly into his ear, then to the room. Mr. Nakamura says, for the first time, he feels this meeting has begun. Elliot looked at Tasha, eyes wide. She just turned a sinking meeting into a moment of possibility. Not with metrics. With humanity. The meeting ended with no signatures. No contracts. No champagne. But somehow, it felt like a win. After Tasha spoke, the tone in the room shifted. Mr. Nakamura asked 2 questions. Then 3. Then his executives began to speak. Not in bullet points or rehearsed statements, but as people. Sharing thoughts, concerns, and stories about their own fathers, their fears about losing legacy in a modern, global world. For the first time, it wasn't about numbers. It was about values. Later that afternoon, Mr. Nakamura invited Elliot and Tasha to a private tea ceremony on the rooftop garden of the Yamato Tech building. The air was cool, with a gentle breeze passing through neatly trimmed bonsai trees and smooth stone paths. Tasha had never seen anything like it. They sat in silence as a host poured green tea into delicate cups. Mr. Nakamura spoke without translation. When I was a boy, he said slowly, my father taught me that relationships are the soil from which success grows. If the soil is poor, the harvest will fail, no matter how perfect the seed. He looked at Elliot. Your proposal was polished, but your company's foundation needs more care. Then he turned to Tasha. You reminded me that sincerity is still a rare and valuable currency. Tasha lowered her gaze, humbled. I just told the truth. That is why we invite you to rebuild this partnership from the ground up, he continued. No legal teams. No consultants. Just the 2 of you, and the truth. Elliot didn't hesitate. We're in. Mr. Nakamura nodded. But with one condition. Tasha raised her eyebrows. What's that? That Ms. Johnson be included in every future conversation. Elliot smiled. She'll be leading them. Tasha turned to him, eyes wide. I mean it, he said. You see what I couldn't. You brought something into that room no one else could. And if this deal is going to work, it needs more of you. Tasha didn't speak for a long moment. She looked at Mr. Nakamura, at the skyline of Tokyo, at her own hands, still rough from years of hard work. She nodded once. Not for them, but for herself. Because this wasn't just a deal anymore. This was the beginning of something real. By the time Tasha and Elliot landed back in Chicago, the story had already broken. It started with a short article in the Japan Times titled, CEO Apologizes. Janitor Inspires. Someone from Yamato Teka's PR team had shared a recap of the meeting. It mentioned the failed pitch, the human moment, and the unexpected woman who turned everything around. Then Forbes picked it up. Then CNN. Then Good Morning America called Zentroteka's office requesting an interview. The headlines were everywhere. The night cleaner who saved $1 billion deal. From mop to mic. Tasha Johnson's unexpected corporate debut. What CEOs can learn from a woman who wasn't supposed to be in the room? Tasha tried to laugh it off. I just said what needed saying, she told the first reporter who reached out. But the world wasn't laughing. They were listening. Podcasts debated what her rise meant for corporate culture. LinkedIn exploded with think pieces. A Harvard Business School professor wrote a case study titled The Johnson Effect, Emotional Intelligence in Global Negotiation. Elliot, for once, stepped back. When interviewers asked for his thoughts, he always said the same thing. This isn't my story. This is Tasha's. Eventually, her inbox overflowed with invites. A TED Talk. Speaking panels. Magazine covers. But Tasha only said yes to the ones that gave her room to be real. "I don't want to be your mascot," she said during one panel. "I want to be part of something that teaches people how to lead without forgetting how to care." So when Elliot offered to co-found a new initiative, the Human Bridge Institute, she said yes. On one condition. "I want the first program to be in Bronzeville," she said, "where I'm from, where kids grow up thinking they're only seen when they're in trouble." And just like that, the girl who used to mop floors at 3 a.m. was now helping executives and teenagers learn how to listen. Not with a script. With heart. It wasn't supposed to turn into anything personal. Not at first. Tasha and Elliot were from two completely different worlds. She came from the south side of Chicago, raised by a single mom who worked double shifts. He was a private school kid from the suburbs, groomed to lead since he was 15. But late nights working on the Human Bridge Institute brought them closer. Not through grand gestures, but small things. The way Elliot made sure Tasha always had a ride home. The way Tasha called him out when he defaulted to corporate speak. "You keep saying value proposition, Elliot," she told him once, sipping coffee in a quiet office at midnight. "But what are we really offering people? A brochure? Or hope?" He didn't answer right away. He just looked at her, like maybe, for the first time, someone saw through all his polished layers and into the man underneath. One Friday, Elliot invited her to Millennium Park. No press. No cameras. Just the two of them and a couple of street performers playing jazz. They sat on a bench, watching people drift by, and for the first time since Tokyo, there were no deals, no meetings, no pressure. Just peace. "Tasha," he said softly, "what if this isn't just about business anymore?" She looked over, heart thudding. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I want to build more than an institute with you. I want to build something real." Tasha smiled, slow and cautious. "You sure? 'Cause I don't wear heels. I'm not gonna show up to galas in diamonds and pretend to fit in." He chuckled. "I'm not asking you to change. I'm asking if you'll keep being the one person who tells me the truth, even when I don't want to hear it." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Then yeah," she said, "let's build something real." And right there, under the fading city lights, a story that started with a wrong number and a janitor's instinct took a quiet, powerful turn into something beautifully, unmistakably personal. 6 months later, the floors Tasha once scrubbed were now the ones she walked across in heels. Low ones, sure, but still hers. She'd gone from janitor to co-founder. From invisible to undeniable. But the truth? She hadn't changed. She still woke up early. Still kept a pair of sneakers in her bag. Still said good morning to the front desk guard like it mattered, because it did. And now, she was helping others find their way too. At the Human Bridge Institute's new community center in Bronzeville, high school students practiced job interviews. Single moms attended free leadership workshops. And Fortune 500 executives flew in, not for contracts, but for conversations. One of the walls inside the building held a quote painted in bold letters. "People aren't problems to solve. They're stories to listen to." Tasha didn't come up with that line to be profound. She said it once in passing, over lukewarm coffee and a whiteboard full of business terms. But it stuck. Because it was true. See, success isn't just about being in the right room. It's about knowing what to say when no one expects you to speak. It's about choosing courage when it would have been easier to stay quiet. It's about showing up, as you are, not who they told you to be. And sometimes, the biggest shift in your life doesn't come from a promotion or a paycheck. Sometimes, it comes from picking up the phone. So here's the question. What if the next call that changes everything isn't meant for you, but you answer it anyway? What if you're the one the world's been waiting for, but no one thought to ask? And what if the thing that makes you different is exactly what makes you powerful? This was never just a story about a CEO and a cleaner. It's a story about what happens when people stop pretending they have all the answers and start listening with their hearts. Tasha didn't become someone new. She just stopped hiding who she already was. And the world, it made room for her.